Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Well, today I've got some interesting encounters I'd like to share with you. More from around my area in upstate New York. Before we do that, though, a couple links I'd like to share. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook version, written by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny, is available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. Links to those are in the description as well. Now, everyone, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's first part of the upload. My name is Cheryl, a Mohawk Indian who grew up on the Onondaga Indian Reservation. I'll never forget when my cousin and I saw a Bigfoot. We were both 11 years old on March 11th, 1975 at 11 a.m. We left our aunt's house that morning and decided to cut through the woods, thinking it'd be safer than two young girls walking along the road. Throughout our walk, it seemed that we were being watched. We finally arrived at the halfway point of our journey when we reached the local abandoned gravel pits. I slid down the embankment first and my cousin followed. I started to play on the frozen mud puddle when she started to climb back up the hill to retrieve her glove. She called for me to come near her, but didn't right away until finally her persistence frightened me. She grabbed me close and said, "A big black arm just tried to grab me." Thinking that maybe a hunter had followed us, or even a black man was lurking in the woods, frightening us enough to make a run for the road. As we got to the road, we both saw this big figure walk through some 6 to 8 foot sumac trees. Its head and shoulders were over the tops of the trees, and we could imagine how it could have traveled to the other side of the pit, which is at least 150 feet from where she first saw the arm. We ran the rest of the way home and told our family we had seen a Sasquatch. Of course, everyone laughed at us as the years passed by, and we told the exact same story. Our families believe us now. Looking back, I have concluded that Bigfoot was heading toward an underground cave that is sacred to the Onondaga. I believe that this cave connects other Indian reservations by underground channels. Indian legend tells stories that Bigfoot is a spirit that protects the Indians. That is probably why no one has ever found any proof of his existence. I've had many dreams about Bigfoot where he comes back with others like him. Their calls are frightening. When I walk in the woods, I am afraid that I will see him again. I wonder if I saw him because if the world ever ends, I have dreamt that will be the one to lead my people underground until the earth heals itself from all the destruction that is forecasted. It is forecasted that Other Earth is consumed in flames to cleanse herself. The Indian will come up from the underground to begin life again, hoping that this story will stand out from all others that you have or will receive. Today's second part of the upload. I live in central New York State, around Utica area. I've never seen a Bigfoot or ever found any signs of one, and I am an avid hunter and love the outdoors, especially the Adirondack Mountain area. I did find something interesting, though, at a local Gander Mountain store. I was in the store purchasing some hunting supplies this last deer season in New York. They have a bulletin board near the store entrance where people can post photos of their deer, fish, or whatever they want to along with the upcoming events. Someone posted a paper that stated, "Hunters, please read. It stated that a group of deer hunters, while staying at a hunting camp in Herkimer County, in the town of Ohio on North Lake Road, had a large animal of some kind bother them the whole night at their camp. I guess it frightened them so much they stayed awake all night with their rifles loaded. The creature made loud screeching sounds that made the hair on their back of their necks stand up. They were so frightened that they left the next day. I've been in that area, and it's very, very remote. North Lake Road goes from Forceport, New York, to North and South Lake. It's about 10 or 15 miles long with nothing but a few camps. Very few camps. Heavy forests and swamp, typical Adirondack wilderness. Most of this area would be perfect for Bigfoot country. Quick interjection, where he's talking about is not the Adirondacks. A lot of people don't realize that the Adirondacks start up in the Lake George region. That's the foothills of the park. It doesn't extend out very far. Herkimer is kind of southwest of where I live, and I'm right in the foothills. Like, I can spit and hit the sign that says you are entering the Adirondack Park. This encounter, or where he's talking about the encounter, is very wooded. It's very dense, very lush with, great hunting area, but it's not the Adirondacks. My grandfather had a hunting cabin near where they're talking about. It was in Newcomb, and there was an old Newcomb dump out there. Their hunting camp was nothing extravagant. It was kind of like an RV camper, or a trailer set up on some land, and they'd go out and hunt, go back, sleep, eat, drink, play cards, whatever they did. And they had a couple of weird experiences. My mom told me some experiences where my granddad would say one night something was actually rocking the trailer itself. But yes, New York is dense with forest, but where he's talking about is not the Adirondacks. A lot of people get that confused, even people that live in New York. Back to the encounter. This is my second experience. Again, takes place in New York, in the town of Ohio. It happened to the son of a very good friend of mine. He's approximately 25 years old or so. This sighting took place last year. I believe around late spring, early summer. My friend's son was alone on a back road called Black Creek Road, driving his car one night. As the car's headlights shone straight ahead, he noticed a very large animal of some kind walk across the road in front of him, a short distance ahead. It walked upright on two legs, and I said it was very large, with long dark hair covering its whole body. It came from the right side of the road and crossed to the left side, driver's side of the car. As he approached the creature, it just stopped on the side of the road, only a couple feet away from the edge. As my friend's son passed the creature, he came with only a couple of feet from it, and got a very good look at it. He said it was very, very large, about 7 feet tall, extremely broad-shouldered, and must have weighed hundreds of pounds. What really caught his eye the most was the hair on the creature's arms. It was much longer than the hair on the rest of its body. As he passed the creature, it just turned its head and upper part of its body slowly and nonchalantly looked down into the car as he drove by. My friend's son sped away to his home where my friend also lives. My friend told me when his son came into the house, he was very agitated and frightened. He told what had just happened to him, but never told anyone outside of his family or close friends, being afraid that people would make fun of him. I know my friend very well, and he told me his son was truthfully frightened of what he saw that night, and knows it is definitely the truth. His son stated that there was no way the animal was someone creating a hoax. Now for these next four, we are going to get very close to where I grew up. Actually, within 10 miles to about a half a mile from the house I grew up in. All four of these encounters. This first one, we have a town around here called Saratoga Springs. It's famous for horse racing, Revolutionary War. It has a beautiful concert hall inside, called SPAC, Saratoga Performing Arts Center. Concerts are held there usually all the time in the summer. This summer there was none. But you'll understand when I get into this encounter, so enjoy. I'll never forget as long as I live. Back in August 1989, my boyfriend Jeff and I were walking home from the Richard Marx concert off Route 50. We decided to cut through the Winchester Trail, the trail that leads behind the property of Geyser Crest, to where we both lived back then. It was 9 or 10 when we hit the trail in pitch black, and it gives me chills to think back, but I'd like to share this story if it helps in any way. As soon as we reached the trail off to the right and down of an embankment in the dense woods, something was moving, and as it walked, the ground shook. It was getting closer to us, and seemed like it could see us, but we could not see it. We heard trees being snapped as we ran. Parallel to where we were running, it chased us almost all the way out of the trail. We were very scared and continued running and could barely see where we were running. No one would believe us when we told the story. We decided to go back the next day during daylight hours just to confirm what we thought happened down there. When we got there the next day, there were several 7 by 5 in circumference footprints. Some were the size of a man's neck. Green saplings snapped in half coming up the trail from where we were running. We immediately thought Bigfoot, even though we didn't actually see the creature. And they were snapped off a good 4 to 5 feet up from the base of the trunk of the trees. So they had to be snapped off by something that was standing on its hind legs. We checked for footprints, but didn't go far down to inspect the area out of fear. But you could clearly see the trees were snapped right off, as if they were only twigs. The area was densely wooded, and wet forest trail ran through the middle. Beaver dams and several acres of forest. Train tracks run between Route 50 and Hawthorne Boulevard. We saw no creature. This next encounter absolutely amazed and frightened me. Not frightened me, but kind of freaked me out a little. So much that when I received the encounter, it was about 11 o'clock at night, and I called my dad. This encounter happened roughly around the time I was around the same age as this kid, only a quarter to an eighth of a mile away from my house. My dad and I used to launch his boat at this boat launch. We used to go fishing down there. I spent summers down there fishing, riding my BMX bike down there to go fishing, hanging out with friends, smoking cigarettes, doing all sorts of 13, 14-year-old boy stuff down there. And this freaked me out. I'll also share a little something with you at the end of the next couple. Moving on. Town of Monroe, New York. The late 70s or early 80s. I'm in my 40s, and my dad saw a Bigfoot on Nolan Road in Monroe, New York. This is an account he gave. The story is second-hand to set the scene a little. The narrow road descends along a somewhat steep hill down to the Hudson River. Where the sighting occurred, there are woods that cover a sharp incline about 70 degrees to the right of the road and a complete drop-off into more woods to the left of the road. The creature was completely covered in dark hair, and it came running on two legs but moving more like a bear than a man, down from the hill to the right and across the road. It then jumped, feet first, over the drop-off to the left. I was with my dad at the time, but did not see it. As I was reading in the back seat of the car, he told me to look, but it was gone before I could see it. We followed the road down around the corner to come out by the river and look into the woods from our car to hopefully see it again. But we couldn't see anything. We decided not to get out of the car and went home after looking for a while. Total time of the sighting was about 2 seconds or so. We never mentioned it except to a couple of friends and relatives. But a couple of months later, a teenage girl reported seeing a Bigfoot in nearby Washington County. I'm not sure exactly where. The sheriff's office investigated, and the officer claims to have seen the creature as well. I believe the story was in the Post-Star newspaper, but I can't find it on the online archive. I can't remember the year, but it was during the late 70s or early 80s. Now, the two encounters that I just shared with you, even though the boy had said Bigfoot, but he didn't really see it, where I had my encounter was on the same side of the Hudson River that they saw whatever they saw. How it was running reminds me more of a Dogman than a Sasquatch. The encounter that happened off of Geyser Crest Road in Saratoga is about 4 miles south of where I had my encounter. And how they described the footprints that they did see, 7 to 5 inch circular prints, would lead me to believe that was a Dogman as well. I'm wondering, when I got these, I instantly got chills and told my parents about them, and said I really honestly have a feeling that this could have been the same creature that I saw or some relation to. I really believe these two were definitely Dogman and not Bigfoot. Terrifying, absolutely. This next encounter is about 10 miles from where I am right now. Warren County, New York, August 1992. Sabbath Day Point. I heard the vocalizations during a week-long period in August of 92 and May of 93. Both occurred at Sabbath Day Point, Lake George, New York, where we owned a log cabin on the water. The sounds would start any time from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. The sounds usually began with a whistling and thumping sound. The first time I heard the noise, it sounded far away, on the top of the mountain behind our house. But within a matter of 30 seconds, it was about 200 feet away from the main road, Route 9 North. The rock cliff rims Bloomer Mountain, with a large boulder field heading down towards the main road. It is impossible for anything to climb down under an hour. There must have been two calling to each other. It screamed extremely loudly, with chattering and squeals, and what sounded like a woman's laughter mixed with crying. The hair on the back of my neck would stand up. It was unlike any other sound I had ever heard. I was gripped with extreme fear. Although I managed to eventually shine a flashlight out into the night, I saw nothing. My wife never heard a thing. However, my 3-year-old daughter once woke up crying during the vocalization, and said that the sound of the creature had woke her up. I found it strange that she said creature and not animal or man. Also, about 15 years ago, just south of this area, coming towards my way, I was in a canoe with my younger brother, out for a sunset paddle, when we both saw something strange standing on the shore. We were at the base of Deer Leap Mountain, which has a huge boulder field running down to the lake. We were about 200 feet out when we saw a thin, brown-haired creature standing erect on the shore, about the size of a small man. Its body was facing sideways from us. Its head was looking directly across its left shoulder at us. We did not feel secure to move any closer than we were. It had a strange grin with piercing eyes, almost a maniacal look. It had long, thin arms and did not move as we slowly paddled by. It wasn't dark yet. The far shore was still lit by the sun, but our shore was now a shadow. As we turned around to go home, we noticed it had climbed a dead pine tree nearby and moved out onto a crooked branch. As it was gripping onto the branch, it cocked its head toward us, staring at us, then turned its head down between its front arms and into its chest. At this point, it became camouflaged with the tree. If you don't know it was there, you wouldn't have thought it was there. You would have just thought it was a large lump of branch. A footnote to this is a story I read about a thing in New Hampshire called the wood devil. It was known to old hunters to be found in the forest, and whenever a person came near it, it froze, blending into the trees around it. And to add to this, last summer I had mentioned to an employee at a nearby YMCA camp that I heard Bigfoot when she interrupted me to tell me that she saw and she named Monkey Boy. She said it was small with brownish hair covering its body. She and another friend saw it hopping at a lakeside pavilion. It looked at them and hopped up into the steps, then off behind a small wall. And when it looked directly at them, they screamed and ran away. It was the size of a small man. This spot is 2 miles north of where I heard the noises, and about 3 miles from where I saw the creature on the shore. Another mile or so to Buck Mountain. So, where he saw this, if you look at the lake, I would be at the south end right now, and I'm looking dead north, following the lake up. There on the west side of the lake, the east side is where the YMCA camp is. It's called Camp Chinjahook. Buck Mountain is behind that, just a little bit. And it's creepy as heck out there. It really is, especially at night. It's an overnight YMCA camp. Kids go camping out there. But there's a pull-off to go hike Buck Mountain. And we've hiked Buck a couple times at night. And it's definitely a creepy, creepy environment. This one was spoof. When he explained how it was climbing up the tree or how it was looking at them maniacally. I mean, geez, I'm crow. Lake George, Buck Mountain region. Around July 9th, 2000, my wife and I were chased out of the woods by what I am sure was a Sasquatch in the Lake George, Buck Mountain region of the Adirondacks, New York, and Warren County. The creature observed us from about 100 feet away and broke large branches and made a large, roaring, screaming-like sound at least 7 times, maybe more. That could only come from a very large mammal. I've been in the woods with very large bear, and have even taken away food bags from bear. But this was no bear or coy dog. It was much larger. We never did see it, but we could hear it following us through the trail in the woods, and I have never been so scared in my life. It kept coming closer, would stop, roar, then approach us closer. We were nearly frozen in fear, but managed to collect our things from where we had been resting, and nearly ran out of the woods. My wife is a very big skeptic of Bigfoot until this point. The whole time we walked out of the woods, she kept on commenting that it was following us. We could feel it watching us and could hear it through the woods. A few times I saw something move through the woods parallel to us, but tried not to look, as we both picked up large sticks in case it attacked us. There was no one parked in the trail head when we came out, and I suspect it had followed out 2 other hikers that had hiked in earlier ahead of us and just happened to come across us. The sounds we heard that day have really bothered me since then. I'm literally scared to death of going into the woods alone now. Even though I've been hiking for over 20 years, I can't explain the terror I felt from hearing this thing. I feel like I have to go back to the area to check it out, but my wife will never go back into the woods after this incident. That's how frightening these sounds were. I was wondering if you know anyone in upstate New York area that researches Bigfoot that would go up the trail with me to just look around and see if we could maybe find some tracks of some sort or look for signs of the creature. So literally, like I just said, you go down this road called Pilot Knob Road. And it's a good 2, maybe 3 miles. There's a pull-off on the right side of the road. Next to the pull-off, right next to it, is a firehouse for the houses that are on that road and Camp Chinjahook. The trailhead starts right as you're in this parking lot. It's right there. And you just go straight up this mountain called Buck Mountain. Definitely a creepy thing. I said it just moments ago before I shared this encounter. I remember, I want to say somewhere between 90 and 92, maybe no later than 95, that the mountain caught on fire one year. Mysteriously, no one knows what happened. Nothing was, it was not revealed to be arson, but the mountain did catch on fire and a lot of animals ended up becoming displaced, and until the forest grew back. They grew back pretty quick, but yeah, it was pretty crazy watching that fire from, you could see the smoke right from my house. It was friggin' insane. Today's final part of the upload for terrifying encounters in my neck of the woods. This next one is, God, wow, 2, maybe 2.5 miles from where I'm sitting right now. If I looked out my window to the west and there was no houses, I would be able to see our city reservoir. And so this is where this one happened. Fall of 1989. I was deer hunting with 5 people, including my younger brother. We were in our late teens. We started at sunup. The rest of my group went into the woods at different locations. I walked down the dirt road to the city water reservoir. As I made it to the pond, I could see something extremely tall with a large body, mass standing at the opposite end of the pond. I could remember that my immediate impression was a black bear standing up. I didn't have a scope on my rifle and no binoculars. When I observed it walking and not going down on all fours, I became a little scared. Then I gathered my courage, since I did have a deer rifle, and walked around the pond. When I got to the area, I found no tracks in the mud or the trail area. I know what I saw and decided to keep it to myself. I was thinking Sasquatch. Around 1300, we all met back to my car. I met my younger brother first. He had told me that he was standing against my car when a Sasquatch came out of the woods and went across the road back up to the opposite hill. He described the Sasquatch from coming from the direction where I observed it. I told him to keep his mouth shut for fear of people would think he was nuts. Long story short, years later I asked him about what he had seen. He was serious when he said this impression was Bigfoot and had not another explanation. I then broke down and told him what I saw. He said nothing more, and neither of us have spoken about it again. Crazy thing is where these guys were hunting. The reservoir is up that way. There's a mountain called West Mountain, and it's a ski mountain. It's a local ski mountain for the locals. Not much publicity. It's a hidden gem for locals. But around these old roads is we have a story of a witch called Abigail West. And growing up, we used to go by the house. There's so many rumors. There's actually 2 rumors around that area. One is that her house was struck by lightning, and she was killed. Another was she was a practicing witch, supposedly satanic black magic, and the locals in the early 1900s burnt her and her house down with her in it, and she cursed the area. It's a pretty creepy area. I've heard a lot of kids have gone out that way growing up, and supposedly, supposedly people had seen things that were glowing out by the house's cellar. The house actually is partially standing. I'm not sure now. 20 years ago it was. The cellar was exposed. It was a friggin' creepy area. And then going northeast toward Buck Mountain, there is a Boy Scout camp that I attended till I got my Life Scout badge. I almost made Eagle, but stopped. Ended up becoming an explorer. But the Boy Scout camp is called Camp Wackpomony. And we have a monster out there that resembled a Sasquatch, now that I think about it. And we called it the Hairy H-Man. Supposedly, this huge hairy man, hair all over its body, runs through the woods. I guess there was a fire at a house, and some city people moved in the area, and they had no idea, that how tame this area is. That, people don't lock their doors sometimes up here. So these people put bars on their window. Well, apparently the house had caught on fire, and this hairy H-Man had heard the racket and grabbed the window and was trying to rip the bars off to save the people inside. And I guess the H comes from the bars burning itself onto this monster's chest. It's just an interesting but kind of campsite story we would tell each other at Boy Scout camp. Especially when we were in the Order of the Arrow, and there was a cemetery out there from like the 1800s, and supposedly the house was beyond that, just beyond the ridge, and where the Order of the Arrow sacred land was just over the road, across the road. And I mean, when I say road, a dirt road. I mean, dirt road. There was potholes that'll swallow a car. Definitely a cool place. There was some iron ore mines out there. I remember compasses would get screwed up from the magnetism in the rocks and stuff like that. Really fascinating time. Great place to grow up with a lot of folklore and tradition. But anyway, I hope you guys liked this, and sorry for rambling. And talking about where I grew up like it was something great, but to me it was. And just like everybody else who really enjoyed where they grew up, I really did. And that's why I'm still here. Anyway, have a great day, guys, and see ya!